The line at a Taco Bell in a mid-sized American city hummed with the usual chatter of lunch traffic. Orders came fast, pushed through the window with practiced precision. And yet, in one corner of the kitchen, something unusual was slowing everything down. A small oven, a separate prep station, a stack of trays with fish fillets waiting for a coat of batter. This was the heart of Taco Bell's seafood experiment, and it was already creating tension where no one had expected it. Customers didn't see it, but the crew did, the extra steps, the unfamiliar ingredients. In the late 1980s and early 1990s, Taco Bell was looking for ways to stretch beyond tacos, burritos, and the occasional enchilada. Market research hinted at untapped curiosity. Seafood, while unusual in fast food, had a kind of upscale appeal. Taco Bell executives theorized that adding fish tacos or seafood-based menu items could attract a new set of diners. In a series of test markets across the United States, select locations introduced fried fish tacos, shrimp wraps, and other limited seafood options. At first glance, it seemed promising. Marketing materials highlighted the novelty. Fresh fish, zesty sauces, a twist on the standard taco shell. Consumers, especially in coastal test markets, were intrigued. Reviews in local papers and trade magazines mentioned the unexpected but fun addition. Franchise owners liked the idea of a differentiator, something that might drive incremental traffic. It was, in many ways, a textbook case of a fast food chain spotting a trend and trying to ride it before anyone else. On paper, the numbers made sense. A unique offering could justify a higher margin, fill gaps in the dinner daypart, and refresh brand excitement. But the hidden friction started almost immediately. Fast food, especially in Taco Bell's drive-thru centered model, runs on speed and consistency. Introducing seafood disrupted the flow. Fish required separate storage, thawing schedules, and cooking times different from beef or chicken. The breading and frying process didn't match the rhythm of taco assembly lines. Even when kitchen staff adapted, the holding times created a trade-off. Overcook slightly, and the fish dried out. Undercook, and safety concerns loomed. Across multiple locations, this inconsistency threatened the core promise Taco Bell had spent decades perfecting. Fast, predictable, and inexpensive food that tasted largely the same at every window. Consumer psychology added another layer of challenge. Taco Bell's audience expected tacos, burritos, and recognizable flavors. The idea of seafood seemed fun at first, but it collided with brand trust. Many regulars were hesitant. They liked the chain for beef and chicken, not fish. Some early testers appreciated the novelty, but did not return after the first visit. Marketing could hint at freshness and new flavors, but the drive-thru speaker never communicated seafood as a comfortable choice. Even with positive reviews in small circles, the concept didn't translate into habitual purchases. Fast food is built on repeat behavior, and Taco Bell's seafood never earned its place in that pattern. Beyond customer hesitation, the experiment strained logistics. Some franchisees struggled to source consistent seafood supplies. The items required refrigeration space, separate prep areas, and strict timing. Unlike tacos or burritos, fish could not be swapped or stored long. Every chain location was designed for modularity and speed. Introducing a fragile, perishable item disrupted that architecture. Costs rose, mistakes multiplied, and the promise of a high-margin novelty became a drain on labor and attention. Franchise owners began to quietly question whether the extra effort was worth the uncertain return. Even as Taco Bell explored limited-time promotions, the early signs of mismatch became apparent. The curiosity that had drawn customers to try the seafood items was not translating into sustained demand. Orders were sporadic, preparation slowed service slightly, and some locations quietly removed the items after short runs. Internally, executives observed that while novelty drove short-term buzz, operational friction threatened Taco Bell's foundation. The experiment, which looked clever on paper, revealed a more stubborn truth about menu innovation. Yet, despite the challenges, there were moments that suggested the potential. Those moments hinted that, in a different context, seafood could have worked. But in Taco Bell's universe of drive-thrus, the tension between promise and reality was mounting. By the time the first test phase concluded, the company faced a choice: refine the concept or pull back and protect the core brand. And so the question remained: why did the experiment never earn a foothold in Taco Bell's lineup? The answer, buried in kitchens, supply chains, and customer expectations, was about more than novelty. It was about the hidden forces that define fast food success, the rhythms of service, and the loyalty of routine buyers. And for Taco Bell, That meant that even a tasty fish taco might not survive in a world built for speed and familiar flavors. The experiment's failure was already hinting at deeper truths, shaping the chain's approach to menu expansion. The promise of Taco Bell's seafood items wasn't just about novelty. It was tied to an ambitious push to position the chain as slightly more sophisticated. Executives imagined dinner baskets featuring fried fish, shrimp tacos, and surf and taco combos. This could appeal to families looking for a fast yet slightly different experience. It aimed to capture attention without abandoning the core brand identity. In small test markets, these items generated curiosity. A teenager trying a shrimp taco might text friends. A family intrigued by a fish fillet basket could bring in a parent. On paper, it was the sort of innovation that could position a chain as willing to experiment. But what looked clever on paper collided with reality. Fast food success depends on repetition, speed, and predictability. Taco Bell's drive-thru systems were optimized for layered assembly. Seafood required separate prep stations and precise frying times. Fryers designed for standard items could not manage the delicate balance required for fish. In rush hours, a single order of fish tacos could frustrate customers. Seafood items introduced pauses, handoffs, and timing errors. Consumer psychology amplified the operational problems. Taco Bell had built trust around its menu expectations. Customers knew what to order, what to expect, and how quickly it would arrive. Seafood was a category they didn't associate with the brand. First-time tasters sometimes enjoyed it, but many didn't return. Some participants expressed skepticism over freshness and flavor authenticity. Marketing could highlight fresh ingredients, but drive-thru interactions were different. The supply chain presented another hurdle. Consistent seafood sourcing required refrigeration space and careful rotation. Franchise owners found themselves juggling multiple new variables. Labor costs crept upward as staff learned new cooking sequences. Franchisees quietly questioned whether the incremental revenue justified the disruption. Even enthusiastic management could not ignore the operational inefficiencies. Meanwhile, the experiment inadvertently highlighted a subtle conflict between brand promise and category extension. Taco Bell was fast, predictable, and inexpensive. Introducing seafood subtly shifted customer expectations, creating small cognitive dissonances. If the chain could offer seafood, what else could it offer? And if the chain could serve seafood at fast food speed, could it also meet expectations for quality comparable to seafood restaurants? Every promotional piece, every test market ad, nudged customers toward a concept Taco Bell was not yet structured to deliver consistently. Some locations reported occasional spikes in curiosity, but those moments were fleeting. The overall pattern indicated interest without sustained engagement, a critical flaw for fast food products that rely on repeat behavior. By the end of the test phases, a pattern had emerged. Locations that embraced the seafood items struggled to maintain efficiency. Customers reacted cautiously, and franchisees faced operational strain. Internal discussions began to tilt toward withdrawal, a decision to protect the core menu and maintain service predictability. In hindsight, the experiment revealed the limits of category stretching in fast food, the delicate interplay between novelty and consistency, and the often overlooked psychological contracts between brands and their customers. For Taco Bell, the McSee, or whatever nickname test markets applied, had offered a glimpse of potential excitement, but also a cautionary tale. Not every promising menu item survives in the rigid tempo of a QSR operation. Even as executives documented the lessons, there were glimpses of what might have worked. Some locations reported higher than average dinner traffic on weekends. Certain customers expressed delight in a properly executed fish taco, noting flavor and texture that rivaled more traditional seafood spots. But these wins were localized and anecdotal. They did not scale across the national footprint, and they certainly didn't offset the operational bottlenecks or brand misalignment revealed in larger test markets. The experiment, though short-lived, became a case study in the complexities of menu innovation in a high-volume, fast-service environment. And so, Taco Bell's seafood adventure quietly faded. The brand retained its core identity, tacos, burritos, and familiar flavors, while the brief flirtation with fish became part of the lore. A footnote for employees, franchisees, and fast food historians. But the story didn't end with a simple withdrawal. It raised questions about what innovation really means in a fast food context, about the tension between curiosity and expectation, and about how even a seemingly clever idea can collide with the invisible forces of customer psychology and operational design. Behind the counter, the timers still beeped, the fryers still hissed, and the drive-thru never slowed. A silent testament to the speed and predictability that ultimately define which experiments survive and which quietly vanish. The challenge for Taco Bell wasn't that seafood was inherently a bad idea. In some ways, it made sense. The 1980s and early 1990s saw growing consumer curiosity about non-traditional fast food flavors. The rise of specialty taco houses and coastal seafood chains indicated a market willing to pay for novelty. Taco Bell's leadership recognized that experimentation could differentiate the brand. On paper, adding shrimp tacos or a fish fillet basket seemed like a low-risk way to test expansion. But on paper is where the simplicity ended. Every new menu item required more than just marketing support. It demanded re-engineered workflows, careful supply chain coordination, and consistent training at franchise locations. Fast food systems operate on a choreography of speed: prep, assembly, hold, and deliver. A seafood menu broke that choreography in subtle but impactful ways. Each minute added to prep time compounded across peak hours. Even small delays rippled through the drive-thru line, frustrating regular customers who expected consistency. Franchise owners quickly noticed the tension between innovation and operational reality. Some reported that staff would double plate seafood items to meet demand. That approach solved speed problems but introduced quality inconsistencies. A shrimp taco delivered limp or overcooked could undo the goodwill generated by clever marketing or novelty. For a chain whose core reputation was speed and predictability, these micro-failures were magnified. Consumer psychology played an equally critical role. Taco Bell customers were accustomed to inexpensive, fast, and familiar fare. Introducing seafood subtly challenged this mental contract. Even if the product was flavorful and well prepared, it didn't always align with what consumers subconsciously expected from a Taco Bell. Test market feedback suggested that many first-time tasters were intrigued but cautious. Repeat purchase rates lagged behind more traditional items. In focus groups, participants cited mild skepticism about freshness, the appropriateness of a seafood taco in a fast food environment, and the perceived complexity of the menu. The novelty factor could attract attention, but without consistent reinforcement and habitual engagement, it failed to generate the repeat traffic necessary for national rollout. Operational issues, psychological friction, and supply chain stress combined to form a perfect storm. Seafood required more storage space, refrigeration, and careful rotation, all of which increased labor demands and complexity at the franchise level. Staff needed to learn additional prep techniques and monitor holding times carefully. Labor and training costs climbed. Simultaneously, the chain's supply infrastructure, optimized for predictable beef, chicken, and cheese shipments, struggled to accommodate the irregular flow of seafood deliveries. These logistical challenges magnified the perception of inconsistency, even in markets where the product was most popular. Marketing could not completely compensate. Promotional campaigns emphasized the freshness, novelty, and flavor of the seafood menu, but they also inadvertently highlighted the mismatch. Consumers were reminded of the chain's identity as a burger and taco specialist. Even enthusiastic food enthusiasts recognized that Taco Bell was not a seafood brand. Taco Bell lacked the brand credibility to assure customers that fried shrimp or fish fillets were more than a fleeting gimmick. Curiosity might drive a one-time visit, but repeat traffic was harder to secure. By the conclusion of the test phases, executives had a clear picture. The seafood menu disrupted operational flow, strained franchise resources, and failed to achieve the level of repeat purchase. Some markets had higher weekend dinner traffic, but these spikes were exceptions rather than a consistent pattern. Loyal customers who depended on the chain for quick, predictable meals began noticing longer wait times, creating subtle erosion of trust that executives could not ignore. Taco Bell's brief flirtation with seafood ultimately became a case study in the perils of category extension. Even a well-intentioned and innovative concept can clash with operational realities. It showed how speed, predictability, and brand promise govern the survival of new menu items. As the seafood items quietly disappeared from test locations, the chain refocused on its core menu. The story of Taco Bell's seafood experiment isn't one of failure in the conventional sense. It's a study in the friction between ambition and systemic constraints. By the time Taco Bell phased out the seafood items, the chain had gained a clear lesson. The concept never failed because the product was bad. It failed because it collided with the rhythm of daily operations. Fried shrimp and fish fillets required attention, precision, and timing. That didn't fit into the 60-90 second drive-thru window that Taco Bell's patrons had come to expect. Managers noted a subtle but persistent tension. They could either maintain speed and consistency for the core menu or focus on the seafood items, but rarely both. From the franchise perspective, the added complexity translated into extra labor hours, more equipment maintenance, and increased training demands. Employees had to juggle multiple cook times, prevent cross-contamination, and monitor holding times carefully, all while keeping the standard tacos, burritos, and combo meals moving at the usual pace. Errors were inevitable, and each mistake chipped away at customer confidence. A shrimp taco that arrived late, cold, or overcooked didn't just hurt sales for that item. It risked the reputation of the whole order. This domino effect made many franchisees reluctant to continue promoting the seafood menu, even if corporate marketing encouraged it. Consumer behavior amplified the problem. Taco Bell's typical customer visited for speed, familiarity, and value. Introducing seafood raised questions about freshness, price, and appropriateness. While curiosity drew initial trial, the lack of repeat visits prevented the menu from reaching a sustainable level of demand. The novelty alone was not enough to justify the operational burden, and in a market flooded with seafood offerings at casual dining restaurants, the fast food version struggled to carve out a credible identity. It was a concept ahead of its time in ambition, but mismatched in execution. Ultimately, the experiment left a lasting, if quiet, imprint on Taco Bell's approach to menu development. The chain doubled down on what it did best: tacos, burritos, and value-focused combo meals that could be produced quickly and consistently across thousands of locations. Seafood was quietly shelved, a footnote in internal strategy reviews, and a reminder that brand trust and operational harmony often outweigh the allure of novelty. Test markets had revealed the limitations of stretching the menu too far from the core identity, and corporate strategy shifted toward incremental innovation rather than high-risk category extensions. Even years later, references to the seafood menu surface in discussions among fast food enthusiasts and former employees. It's a story about timing, brand perception, and the invisible infrastructure that supports every quick-service meal. The shrimp taco was not a failure in isolation. It was a friction point that highlighted the complex calculus of fast food success. In the end, Taco Bell learned that not every innovation needs to survive. Some exist simply to show the boundaries of possibility, shaping future experiments in subtle but profound ways. The fryers cooled, the drive-thru lane kept flowing, and the experiment faded, leaving behind a lesson about the delicate balance between ambition, operations, and consumer expectation. A reminder that even the most curious idea must align with the rhythm of the brand to survive.